Off the beaten road of travel, the ancient town of Nazareth lies secluded on the slopes of Galilee. It has changed but little since he, who is called the Nazarene, dwelt here in his childhood. Mary's Well, one of the most popular shrines of Palestine, is now guarded by British soldiers, for it is the only spring in Nazareth. The young women of the village still draw the water and transport it in the fashion of 2,000 years ago.
Salam, معكم Dalal, and this is the Vegans for Palestine podcast. Meet Said, a Palestinian from Nazareth who currently lives in Jordan. For most Christians around the world, Nazareth is the place where Jesus grew up. For Said, it is also his hometown. Said talks to Rayan about his veganism, his love for his homeland, and his family's connection to the holy city. Enjoy this one.
My name is Said Jarias. I'm an engineer. I'm a renewable energy engineer. Worked in that for a few years, and I'm the co-founder of Jordanian Vegans, and we also started Vegans for Palestine with our comrades in Vegans for Palestine. That was in November 2023. So I'm passionate about animal rights. I'm an animal rights activist. Now I'm a human rights activist as long as an animal rights activist. I work in different communities in the vegan, or not only in the vegan world, but also in the Palestinian liberation world. I went vegan on January 4th, 2020. So that's 5.5 years now or something. I went vegan overnight, believe it or not. I went vegan for health reasons in the beginning, plant-based. Then there was like this blindfold that was lifted off my eyes, and I started, in the first week, I watched 7 different documentaries about veganism and the effects on the environment and the effects on human health and the effects on animals and the animal cruelty, and it took me around 2-3 months until I had the courage to watch a documentary of animal rights activists planting hidden cameras in slaughterhouses and in animal agriculture farms or prisons. That documentary was 1 hour long, and I cried for about 2 hours. So every 5 minutes, I would pause and cry for 10 minutes and then resume watching. And then I knew that I was vegan and I needed to speak up about the voices. The first week, it was, I watched documentaries about the environment, a documentary called Cowspiracy, and another documentary. I watched all the vegan documentaries that you can find them on YouTube. They're called Vegan. 2019, 2020, 2020. Every year they have a documentary released. And I watched Forks Over Knives for health reasons. The first one that I watched that made me instantly change was Game Changers. So I watched Game Changers on a Saturday morning. I still remember that. I still didn't have breakfast. And I had a hummus sandwich or something for breakfast that day, and was plant-based from that moment. Then after a couple of months, I watched this documentary called Land of Hope and Glory. I don't know if you've seen it. One of my icons in veganism, the animal rights activism, his name is Earthing Ed, or Ed Winters. He created that documentary. Basically, they plant hidden cameras in slaughterhouses and in farms, and they explain what is going on at that moment. So I watched that. I was like, we have to talk about it in Jordan. So what happened first is that before watching that documentary, I have started an Instagram page called Vegan Foodie, where I wanted to show my family and friends that eating vegan is still delicious, and I still eat the same things that you do, but in a vegan, cruelty-free way. Anything you think of can be veganized. We even veganized Mansaf, which is basically it's the national dish of Jordan. Mansaf is basically like yogurt or dried fermented yogurt with some dead flesh on top, and you eat it over rice, and it's a cultural thing. So we veganized that. This lady, she has a home-based business now. I think that she has a small factory. It's called atrocities. What she does, she veganized jamid. Jamid is the main component, is the yogurt. Jamid is made from fermented yogurt, and she made it from fermented almonds, where she adds the spices of the beladi ghee inside, so it has that. It also has that tangy taste from the apple cider vinegar she uses. It has the spice flavors of the where they put ghee on top of the mansaf usually. So she made it in liquid form. You can buy it from there. It gets delivered to you. You just pour the jar in a pot, add some water, cook it up, and you have jamid. And the other components are rice, the animal flesh, which we replace with seitan. Basically, you can also buy ready seitan, and you just cook it with the jamid, and you have a beautiful mansaf dish. If you pay me, I don't know, $10 billion, I'm gonna be like Trump now, talking about billions. I wouldn't replace it for regular cruel mansaf, to be honest.
Before you told me that Earthling Ed was a former icon, did you want to explain that?
Yeah, sure. I went off a tangent. Excuse me. Earthling Ed, honestly, when 7th of October happened, the Palestinian people have been struggling with the occupation for over 75 years. 7th of October started, they started bombing children and women and men, and without any hesitation, without anyone stopping them, the occupation. And it turned into a genocide pretty quickly. So November 2023, we started noticing that animal rights activists around the world are being silent about what's going on in Gaza and Palestine. So as a vegan and understanding vegan morals and values, understand that we stand up for all kinds of aggression against humans and non-human animals. What happened that I saw a lot of, call them influencers if you want, but from the animal rights activism world. Of course, as a vegan, I'm against killing, but all vegans around the world should be against killing as well. What I'm seeing being done in the West Bank, and what we have been seeing for the past 75 years, 77 years now, in the West Bank, Palestine, in the occupied Palestinian territories, and in Gaza. We've tried Oslo, we've tried the peace treaty as Palestinians with the Israelis, and we've tried to go for a two-state solution, but it doesn't work. So basically, Earthling Ed I'm going off a tangent as well. I loved his type of activism, going to the street and talking to people and having debates with meat eaters and all that. And I thought he was aggressive. Then I went and I saw Joey Carpsong. I also like his method. There are different methods, but they're both like I believe as an activist that we need all kinds of activism. Like you can be gentle at sometimes, you can talk about the environment, you can talk about health, you can talk about all that. Sometimes you have to be blunt and face the oppressor bluntly, basically, like what Joey Carpsong is doing. So I think I didn't mention anything about what was going on in Gaza. And even if you are vegan and you only care for animals, let's say, a year and a half ago, it was 80% of animals in Gaza were killed either by starvation or by direct bombing and killing of these animals. There was a video that went viral recently about these IOF soldiers killing a donkey and shooting it and laughing about it. If you don't care about humans, care about the animals in Gaza at least. So I see that not talking about the genocide is hypocrisy, and you can't call yourself vegan if you don't speak up on what is going on in Palestine and in Gaza. So that's why he's a former. Joey Carpson talked about it, but I don't think he talked enough. I think was his message was a bit too late, a little too late. But also, like, I've unfollowed a lot of doctors that I was following, and a lot of influencers and vegan activists and all that, because they simply were siding with the oppressor. And you can't be vegan. That's called vegan washing. Israel calls itself, or the occupation force calls itself the most moral army in the world, where they they have the highest percentage of vegan soldiers in the army. They wear the vegan boots and they go kill children and bomb mosques and churches and schools and hospitals. It's contradictory to me. Like, I can't understand it as a human. Okay, I might be, or I am biased as a Palestinian, for sure, but any human should understand that. As should any human understand that animal cruelty is not right and eating animals is not right. We are in a place in the world, or we are in a time in the world that, okay, I agree that as human species, we needed to hunt for animals at some points in our lives to survive. But we are not living in a survival mode. The people of Gaza are, but now we in countries that have supermarkets, stocked supermarkets near you or near each one of us, we are not in a survival situation. You can easily go buy hummus, or you can buy chickpeas or food or fresh vegetables or canned food or whatever, and much cheaper than the meat alternative or the cruel alternative. And you can easily be vegan. And health wise, I think that was one of the important things. It might be better for you, actually, because I went vegan for health reasons at first, because I've been diagnosed with this disease back in 2017, 18, called MS, multiple sclerosis, if you've heard of it. So it's basically the immune system in your body attacks its own nerve endings, or the nerve endings of other nerves. It's random in the body. So what that does is inflammation all across the body. And the medication I'm taking basically increases inflammation because it's fighting all this attacks that's happening and preventing all the attacks from happening. So I went plant-based in the beginning to reduce the inflammation, and it worked really well. I used to take painkillers in the morning just to get out of bed if it was the day after I took the medication. After going plant-based, I stopped using pain medications in the morning. My life started becoming much easier. So that's what kept me determined to keep going as plant-based. And then it just lifted the blindfold, as I told you.
It sounds like you saw quite a few examples of vegan washing, though, when the current genocide began.
Yeah.
Because, like you, I went through a process of unfollowing lots and lots of people.
Yeah, it was hard. Like, I put my trust, and I idolized these people where you shouldn't idolize any man. This is what I learned through these past hard 2 years. Vegan washing is everywhere. What the occupation is trying to do is trying to say that they are the most vegan country in the world, and they have the most vegan restaurants in the world, and Tel Aviv is the capital of vegan food, and they're trying to steal our hummus. They're trying to steal our inherently vegan recipes that were passed on from our great grandparents. That's vegan washing. If you've heard about greenwashing, if you've heard about pink washing, and it's the same, but they are using because it's a trend now being vegan, and it's a trend now wanting to be cruelty free. Which I believe isn't true, because being vegan is not a trend, and it's just awakening to the fact that, or just asking questions where your food is coming from, or where your product is coming from, what is going into the production of my makeup or my shampoo or my toothpaste or even my damn burger or something. I don't know. Being vegan is just asking, okay, where does this come from? Do I want a cemetery in my body, or do I want a garden in my stomach, or on my face, or on my teeth, or whatever?
I really liked what you said before. Do I want a cemetery in my body or a garden? And it's phenomenal that we live in an age whereby people call themselves vegan and then carry a gun and murder Palestinian men, women, and children in Gaza, participate in an army that uproots olive trees, murders both human and non-human animals, takes human hostages whilst making fun of non-human animals that belong to Palestinians, or murders them or cuts up their bodies to taunt Palestinians in some of the most obscene displays of terror. And
Yeah,
I think the term vegan washing is only the starting point. It doesn't capture the obscenities going on here, if that makes sense.
definitely.
The most ridiculous group of people on earth has to be vegan Zionists. My wife recently made me aware of their existence. Like, imagine being a vegan Zionist. You know what? I wouldn't harm a hair on the body of an animal. How dare you harm animals? But I can think of a group of people that are less than human that I have no problem genociding in order to steal their country. I started poking around looking for vegan restaurants in Israel. Found this article, Vegan in Israel, the most vegan-friendly country in the world. With a vegan population of over 5% and a huge amount of dishes that are naturally vegan, this is an herbivore paradise. I feel like the reason there's so many vegan Israelis is it's part of the mental gymnastics they have to do to like feel like they're humanitarians while also simultaneously like unaliving entire families, committing genocide. Because like they're living on the land they're trying to steal. But like, I care about the animals. I'm a humanitarian. Fuck those olive trees, though. And fuck those subhuman animals. But the cows. Think of the cows.
Can you tell me about where your family is from in Palestine and how did they leave Palestine?
Yeah, my family is from Nazareth, in the north of Palestine, like you, Baladiyat.
I'm from Ramallah.
You're from Ramallah, not Nazareth. I
No,
thought.
I'm not from Nasser. No, I'm from Ramallah.
Yes, okay. Interesting story. I would like to even know more about the details of my grandfather's life, which unfortunately I can't. He passed away. But my grandparents are from Nazareth. My grandma is also from Nazareth, but she was born in Salt. That's on my father's side. And my grandma was born in Nazareth, and all her sisters and brothers still live there. But she came to Jordan and she got married before they gave the passports. So she always, when she used to go a lot to visit her mom and her sisters and brothers. She used to get an authorization, or they used to get her an authorization from the occupation. She used to go there a lot. It usually happens. She takes a lot of food and gifts and stuff from here. She used to live in Amman and take them to her family. And the soldiers on the bridge would usually try to confiscate everything that she used to take. And she would fight with them all the time. She knew Hebrew. She learned Hebrew. And she used to fight with them all the time. And she would say, if you want to confiscate it, throw it, dump it in the bin right in front of me right now, because they used to take it for themselves. She would spend hours making these pastries and all that, and they would just confiscate it for themselves. So she would fight with them all the time, and she would be in holding for several hours at a time. Like her travel that should usually take maybe 3 hours would take maybe 15, 16 hours to get to Nazareth from Amman. So that's my grandma. And my grandfather, on my dad's side, he was in Nazareth, and he used to work in Jaffa. And he left Palestine in 1947 when all the Zionist gangs started making problems for them. And because he was young, he was like maybe 16 years old, and he used to take care of his brothers and sisters because his father died when he was young. He was the provider for his family. So in 1947, they couldn't stand it and they left. And then the Nakba happened in 1948. But if he stayed, yes, I would have been born there for sure. All the people from Nazareth, as you know, a lot of people stayed there. And now they have citizenship of the occupation.
And it's my understanding that the Zionists created a city above Nasra or Nazareth, and they called it Upper Nazareth. And
Yeah.
the purpose of that city was to make sure that the numbers of Palestinians in Nazareth were outnumbered. So Upper Nazareth was strategically placed there because there were concerns that Palestinians would be a majority.
Yeah, I've been to Nazareth once or twice actually, and when Jordan signed the peace treaty with the occupation, we thought it was serious. So, as my father works in industry, he went there to see if there were any opportunities with the Palestinians in the West Bank and in occupied territories. So he took us with him. So we went to Nazareth. Nazareth, as I remember, has very narrow streets and houses that are built very close together, and every like one of my dad's cousins saw a car in the parking lot, because in Nazareth you can't drive your car, you have to walk, you have to park outside, and you walk around the old city. So he saw a car from that has a Jordanian license plate in the parking. So he asked around. He told him he's at my mom's family's house. So he called us at the hotel. He called him and he said, who is this? Long story. He said, you come to Nazareth and you don't call your own cousin? How dare you? He was fighting with him on the phone. He's like, no, I'll come over. For sure, tell me just where do you live, and we'll be there. So it's a very close-knit community. That's what I'm trying to say. And I think it's on a hill, but a lower hill. There's a higher hill next to it. That's where they built New Nazareth. So where all the Palestinian lives is Old Nazareth, or the original Nazareth, and they built a very huge city in the so-called New Nazareth. Because when in 1948, what happened was, I asked my mom's relatives what happened, like how did you not leave Palestine when the Nakba happened, and they were like, in 1948, Nazareth was it had predominantly Christian families living in Nazareth. And what happened was they talked to the Mukhtar of Nazareth, and because it was inside the territory that they were occupying, and they had this huge land grab. So Nazareth was in that, and they talked to the Mukhtar, and how they made him say yes to the occupation or just surrender was basically, okay, you are mostly Christian city, and we will just you'll just become under occupation, all your residents will be safe, but you just have to surrender. And he did. And what happened was that all the people from surrounding Nazareth, from the villages around Nazareth, came to inside the city, and because they were being deported, they were being thrown in trucks, and either being thrown in Lebanon, Syria, or Jordan. And they put them in the trucks in Nazareth. And all the people of Nazareth lay down. One of them was my great grandmother. she lay down in front of a truck. What they told them that was these are people from here and they will not leave. Basically over our dead bodies. If you want to get them out, you have to run us over. So they managed to keep them in Nazareth. So that's a fun story that he told me about the resistance and how, because my mom's family was one of the families that started the Palestinian Communist Party in Palestine. They were very into resistance and all that.
When we talk about Palestinians with Israeli citizenship, what we have to acknowledge, and this is not an excuse, what we have to acknowledge is that for 75 plus years, they have been coerced into a specific curriculum within their education circles that is strictly Zionist. And I know the Zionists like to use the term Arab Israelis, which is one to erase Palestinian identity. And they like to divide Palestinians between Christians, Druze, Orthodox, Catholic, what was the other one that they often, Bedouin as well. And apart from the disadvantage and apart from being, beyond like fourth class citizens, the most hated within society, like seventh class citizens.
Because I asked them, they say that they told me the word in Hebrew. It's seventh class citizen, even not fourth. I have no idea why, but he explained something, and he said, like my mom's cousin, he was like saying, "Yeah, we are seventh class citizens in the state of the occupation."
I had an interesting Zionist troll who pretended to be Arabic but kept using Google. I think it was Google Translate, and I was like, "This is appalling." I was like, "You have no idea. You really are a mess." And basically, she was trying to argue that Israel is a harmonious society whereby it's a multicultural society whereby all different religions live together. And what happened in 1948. Upon reflecting on that conversation, it was really interesting that that godforsaken Khalsa had the audacity to approach me and say that apparently, war was vegan friendly and that apparently Israel is a multicultural society. And I was actually saying this in an interview today. There are so many forms of washing. I know before we talked about vegan washing and we talked about greenwashing in passing. And I know that these terms have their limitations in terms of understanding the cruelty of the phenomenon that is colonial apartheid Zionism. But at the same time, they are useful in terms of understanding the contradictions within a supposedly progressive only democracy in the Middle East.
It's very weird to be a Palestinian Christian right now. It's very weird. Mainly because nobody knows we exist, right? When we're all talking about Palestine and what's going on in Gaza, there's this like assumption that it's Muslims versus Jews, which is such a ignorant way to look at the genocide, because Palestine is a land for Christians, Muslims, and Jews who all lived in peaceful coexistence before the occupation and before the partition of Palestine. But really what I'm trying to say here is, as a Palestinian Christian, one of the things that has fucked with my head a lot is watching Christians worldwide support genocide of the Holy Land. Right? Like, if you actually believe in the scripture, if you actually believe in Christ and his teachings, I can't connect with those kind of Christians that, I guess, Christian Zionists who believe like, yeah, you know what? Like, the Palestinians got to be slaughtered. The genocide has to happen. Like, Jesus would be okay with it because once it happens, Jesus is going to come back, or some crazy shit like that. It's mind blowing. The Christianity I know is a Christianity of love, of compassion. The Jesus that I worship, the Jesus that I love, the Jesus that I know is a Jesus of forgiveness, of sacrifice, a Jesus who died for our sins and on the cross said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." That's the Jesus that I know, that I was taught about as a Orthodox Christian, as a Palestinian Orthodox Christian, because Jesus was a Palestinian. Jesus was from Nazareth. Christianity started in Palestine. And it pains me to watch the suffering in Palestine right now. And most of the Palestinians there are Muslim. And it pains me to watch my Muslim brothers and sisters suffer. It pains me. It wrenches my soul to watch them die day in and day out, with the world, including the Christian world, not saying a damn thing. I just think it's a shame on Christians. I think I will say that I don't really associate with Western Christians, but anybody who calls yourself a Christian, if you are supporting this genocide, shame on you. If you are supporting the murdering of tens of thousands of innocent civilians, shame on you. That's not Christianity. You maybe are not a Christian. Maybe you in label, in mind, you know, you're a Christian, but in practice, that's not what Christians do. I would just say that as a member of the most ancient denomination of Christianity, the Christianity that started in Palestine, I will say that if you are not absolutely disturbed by this genocide, if you are not calling for an end, an unequivocal end to this carnage, an unequivocal demand for ceasefire, then we don't worship the same Jesus. And I think that is what's messing with my head the most. What's happening right now in Palestine, what Israel's doing to Palestinians, that's not something any real Christian would support.
I still have one story about how my grandfather, his neighbor in Jaffa, was Jewish, and he was Palestinian Jewish, and he left Palestine in 1948 as well. My grandfather came to Jordan, and he started he started a factory for soap. And when he went into food production, he wanted to buy a machine from Italy. So he had to go to Italy, to Rome. So he went there, and by coincidence, by sheer coincidence, he walks into this restaurant and he sees his Jewish neighbor. And he was like, so he greeted him very warmly. They were really good friends, and he invited him for dinner. And because he was not a Zionist, he was just Palestinian Jew, يعني, living in Palestine, and so he invited him over for dinner. And when he went to see the factory that was making the machine, he went with him, and he تفاوض on his behalf. He bartered on the price of the machine on his behalf even. So the bonds were amazing. We really do need a one democratic Palestinian secular state, or call it whatever you want. Don't call it Palestine. Call it whatever you want. Muammar Gaddafi was murdered because he had this idea of Israel. If you've ever heard of this clip before, he was in the Arab League and calling for a one democratic state. He said, "يا عمي, call it Israel, إسرائيل ولا شيء هيك." It doesn't matter, but no Zionism allowed, and it has to be secular because it was always secular. And Christians, Muslims, and Jews were living in Palestine for so long in peace and harmony. Only after Balfour Declaration and World War I and II and the Nakba that we started seeing Zionism grow as a movement, and wanting an only Jewish state in the lands of historical Palestine. That was one story. It really shows the camaraderie and the neighborly love that they had for each other. There didn't matter what your religion was, and I always say we're not against Judaism. We are against Zionism. Israel is the only country in the world throughout history that gives you a nationality based on your religion. If I'm Christian, I go to the Vatican, I say, or the Vatican or Rome, and say, I'm a Christian, give me the passport. They would say, piss off, or not piss off, another word, like, get out of here. What are you talking about? We don't give nationality based on your religion. So that's what Palestine should be. And that's my dream for Palestine, to be one democratic secular state.
I'm wondering what happened to the people of Nasr, the people of Nazareth, a lot of them who managed to stay put in the city. As you and I both know, not everyone in Nazareth got to stay during the Nakba. Many were forced to flee, which means that the Zionists took their homes, which means, when I say took, they stole their homes, which means that a lot of Palestinians all of a sudden had neighbors that were Zionists and basically living there to depopulate Palestinians.
Yeah.
They were living amongst neighbors that were there to erase them, but also saw them as a demographic threat. And there's a really good, I forgot the name of the film. One of the films about the Nakba in Arabic has a really interesting scene that illustrates this predicament. And in this predicament, you have a family that stayed, and next door or above or below them you have a colonial family that moved in, and the wife from the colonial family is having a conversation with the wife from the Palestinian family, and the wife actually says something like, Allah atana al-ard hada al-ard Israel, Allah atana al-ard Israel. The wife from the Palestinian family responds, "Duq rasik bil hayt." And actually, why don't you explain what "duq rasik bil hayt" means?
دق راسك بالحيط يعني the literal translation is hit your head in the, on the wall, but what it means that whether you like it or not, we're here whether you like it or not. Basically, that's what she meant by telling her دق راسك بالحيط.
And honestly, every time I get a troll that attacks me about my vegan activism or attacks the Vegans for Palestine account or podcast, honestly, that's how I want to respond. راسكم بالحيط.
يغص بالك وبال جابوك على بلادنا.
أنا ما جيت على بلادكم، هاي أرض إسرائيل.
إسرائيل؟ من وين لوين؟
من زمان صفية، من 2000 سنة.
هاي فلسطين، هاي أرضنا غصبا عنك وعن جدودك.
لا صفية، أنا بزعل منك.
وطقي راسك بالحيط.
عيب، عيب.
عيب؟ أنتوا بتعرفوا العيب؟ قهوتك وشربتيها، اطلعي من داري، وهي آخر مرة بشوفك هان.
Before, when you were talking about how in a one-state solution, it will be remarkable because I'll be able to travel to Ramallah and there will be no apartheid wall prohibiting the people of Nazareth from interacting with the people of Ramallah and vice versa. As Palestinians, we will always call it Palestine, no matter what the colonizers say it is.
For sure.
Like across Turtle Island, the indigenous people there don't use the colonial names of places. In Aotearoa, New Zealand, it's the same thing. Here, it's the same thing. It's like, why should we as Palestinians adopt the names of our places that the colonizers have imprisoned us with?
True. I agree 100%. It's one democratic, free state of Palestine that is secular. That's what I believe in. But if you want to call it whatever you want, call it Israel, call it whatever. That's what Muammar Gaddafi was saying.
Tongue in cheek.
Sorry?
Tongue in cheek, yani, but not bitmaskhar. What's the word?
Yeah. It was like being sarcastic. Yeah. It was like, call it whatever you want. Call it Israel, call it whatever. I don't care, but no Zionism. And what do you think he was calling the Arab world? He was telling them, what do you think will happen after they take control of historic Palestine? They're coming for you. So it is a real danger for the whole region. And that's what most people understand as citizens in the Arab world. They do understand that. But we live in a world right now where we are very distracted from reality.
A lot of people assume that Palestinian cities vanished in 1948, but that's not true. Take Nazareth. It didn't simply end in 1948. It adapted and resisted. But let's rewind. For a long time, Nazareth was a modest town. It began to flourish in the 18th century when a semi-autonomous Ottoman ruler made it his center. British colonial rule in the 1920s to 1940s further transformed the city, making it into an administrative center. Nazareth also became a focal point for the Palestinian labor movement. The local union linked concerns of workers to the national struggle against the colonial rule. They mobilized local communities to demand independence and rallied international support for Palestine. During the 1948 Nakba, hundreds of Palestinian towns and villages were depopulated. Nazareth, however, remained, in part due to its importance to Christianity and the city's surrender to the Israeli forces. Not that all was good. The residents of Nazareth faced a military regime that restricted their freedoms. But Nazareth became a vital center for Palestinian citizens, and its local leaders advocated for equality and representation while insisting on their identity as Palestinians.
What this generation right now is doing for Palestine is amazing. And if we continue like this, Palestine will be free within 10 to 20 years, I think. The generation after that, I'm skeptical. But maybe the two generations before me, or three, were skeptical about my generation as well. So you don't know. You can't actually tell what's going to happen, but it's only speculations.
Tell me, Said, in terms of returning, what do you think that would be like for you? How do you envision that as being part of, say, a future free, decolonized Palestine?
I would love to return to Nazareth someday, or to Palestine. But really, I'm very skeptical about whether humanity is going into total destruction. And Einstein once said, I don't know what World War III will be fought with, but I know that World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. So if World War III starts, humanity is gone for. So that's why I'm saying I hope we will see a free Palestine, either before the world ends, or before World War III starts, or before we die. If I ever get the opportunity to step inside of Palestine and go to Nazareth, I would be the happiest man in the universe, maybe. I remember when I was young, we went to this village outside of Nazareth. It's called Afule, or I don't know if it's a village or city, but they're very famous with their falafel. And we went to this falafel shop and they gave us a falafel sandwich. They didn't put anything. They put hummus, they put falafel, and they gave us the sandwich. And there was this huge bar or buffet of all the toppings you can think of. And you would put whatever you want on the sandwich and make your own sandwich. So that was fantastic. And he would flip the falafel in the air. I think that's the first place I would go to, because I would be hungry if I go to Nazareth.
What a coincidence, Said. I'm actually going to that place too in the Free Palestine. So maybe Anil Yak, we can go together.
100%. 100%.
أول شي جمهور ما ناقصنا اسطوانة تلف وتدور ما ناقصنا كتير بس مش هممني لاني انا اللي باني فني يعني شغلي ده يدري البيت اللي عليه بغني اسمعني مرة كان ناقصني فلو اليوم ناقصني ناس تسمعوا تقول لي يو مش يابا فو يا ناقصني جيبي ملاني مصاري قوي مرايق بالي عكس خيالي لاني شايف حالي لحالي بين 4 حيطان ناقصني حدود ما بعد السما ناقصني عالم وكان يسعني انا وميكروفون يقبل بس امواس صوتي انا بس ما الاغاني كلها لا بالي ناقصني لحظه دان فيها ما تنساني حتى لو قدام متقدمين في مجالي ناقصني حبي موتي بحبي حدي كل ما بدي اياه يكون ناقصني اخر سطر باخذ فيه نفس شاني ضل لازم حبر مش هممنا كتر بالطلوع علينا مش هممنا مش هززنا من كل الناقصنا مش هممنا بس اوعى بلاش يبلهمنا ونبدا نتحشي جرينا كل يوم الظهر بفيق وانا لفقت بكير صوتي مي بتصيح عليك اليوم تاني موسيقى مهمة يا يما كمرة بدي اقول مش هممني هاي الغناية سجلت وانا هرب من حصة لازم اشوف بكرة وانا عايش هسه عم بحاول احكي بسرعة صار يوجعني الخصر عشان بجيبتي ما بكفوا غير ل 16 سطر الراب العربي صار خرا مش هممني وضع الصحي برجع لورا مش هممني مش بلاقي قوافل خرا ورا مش هممني اني مش هممني لاني انا مش هممني 4 سنين بدون قلبه مش هممني اللي حوالي انا غير عنهم مش هممني بتعرف ايش حتى لو هاي الغناية ما حدا سمعها لولا يوم مش هممنا كتر بالطلوع علينا مش هممنا مش هززنا من كل الناقصنا مش هممنا بس اوعى بلاش يبلهمنا ونبدا نتحشي جرينا من عنوانه واكيد فيه وجهين للعملة الوجه الاول بيهمنيش والتاني مش هممني انا بالغنى اذا كان شعب جوعان بطعمي كلماتي واذا كان عندي ملان ايش ناقصني بيعبي عادي وعنان مش هممنا لو الكل يضل يعيد على حكيه كمان يزيد او حتى ياخدوا البيت وضلنا بالليد بتسمع صوت بعيد بيقول لك مش هممنا كتر بالطلوع علينا مش هممنا مش هززنا من كل الناقصنا مش هممنا بس اوعى بلاش يبلهمنا ونبدا نتحشي جرينا
If anybody was confused about my political beliefs, fuck Donald Trump, free Palestine, fuck ICE, free all oppressed people, fuck capitalism, and eat the rich. I think that's everything.